then that there be a tripartite cooperation to try to repel the Soviet invasion from Afghanistan. And that's when it all started.
Now, after everything that's happened, and I have to tell people to read the book, The Afghanistan File, now the Americans and NATO withdraw. And look at what's happening. Richard Engel is there. The U.S. has not unfrozen the assets of the country because the Taliban, we do not consider the legitimate ruler and leader. They've displaced a government. So what to do about this humanitarian tragedy? And what do you think about the American withdrawal?
Well, I think the American withdrawal was inevitable. And once Mr. Trump made the deal with the Taliban, and behind the back of the legitimate government there, it was quite obvious that, if you like, America had chosen the Taliban as a successor regime. And I think that led to the way that the Afghan army broke down, and Afghan governors made deals with the Taliban, and the president of Afghanistan left in such a way, etc., etc. And so it was not unexpected that what happened would happen. But I must say, I was very disappointed and shocked at how it happened. The scramble to the airport in Kabul by these thousands of people without preparedness or order and so on was unacceptable. And leaving behind, of course, not only nationals but people who worked with America is equally a thing that your government is having to deal with on a constant basis. And for us in Saudi Arabia, we saw the Soviet withdrawal in 1989, which was much more orderly in those days. But although, I must say, the Soviets were equally afraid that their withdrawal would be done in a less orderly manner than it happened.
I have to ask you about, subsequent events as well in your country, because you acknowledge Jamal Khashoggi, he worked with you, and you don't mention his murder and the fact that the CIA has concluded that the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, has responsibility for that brutal murder. That nothing happens in the kingdom of this nature without him knowing, and Khatani and others. Don't you think there needs?
I would disagree with the CIA's conclusions, because they're based on conjecture, they're based on analysis, they're based on presumption, and so, from my view, they didn't produce any evidence of the Crown Prince's involvement.
Well, the evidence was destroyed, but isn't there?
That is something that.
But as an experienced intelligence leader, you know that intelligence analysis is based on the fact that he is the leader. His right-hand man, Khatani, was named as the person, responsible in charge of that unit. How could he not have been responsible?
I'll tell you one thing. Prince Mohammed took responsibility for that. In a television interview with a rival American network, he did say that it happened under my watch, and I take responsibility for it.
The punishment.
He didn't absolve himself of responsibility.
The punishment for Khatani, his right-hand man?
Well, that is for the courts to decide, not for me. And we have a judicial system in the kingdom that tried the killers of Khashoggi and put them in jail. And the family of Khashoggi accepted that verdict and considered it a just verdict. And the people of Saudi Arabia mourned Jamal Khashoggi more than anybody else. And they gave him funerals in the two holy mosques in Mecca and Medina. It was a heinous crime and unacceptable in all terms. But I didn't mention him in the book, and didn't mention the murder in the book, because the book was about Afghanistan, not about Jamal Khashoggi. I wasn't trying to avoid that.
Well, let me ask you about Yemen. Now, it's been almost 7 years, this terrible war, billions of dollars. Is it time for the Saudi Arabia to find a way out of this? Right now, the Houthis, backed by Iran, are in control of the most important parts of the country.
Well, we hope we don't withdraw the way that America withdrew from Afghanistan. I think we made our commitment to the legitimate government of Yemen, which is recognized by the world community, and which Security Council Resolution 2216 of the United Nations supports the legitimate government, and called on the world community to put an embargo on arms to the Houthis. Unfortunately, Iran continues to break that embargo, So it is not Saudi Arabia that has to account for its conduct, but rather Iran and the Houthis. The Houthis instigated a coup d'etat and took over illegally from a legitimate government. And the legitimate government called for help, and Saudi Arabia and other countries provided help. So this is how Saudi Arabia conducts itself in Yemen, as a supporter of legitimacy, rather than an uprising driven by a small militia that took over in the Yemen.
And on Iran, the international inspectors from the UN have now just concluded as well that they are breaking out and running centrifuges in an area that cannot be monitored by the UN. How concerned are you about Iran getting a very short window in order to develop a nuclear weapon if they choose?
It is very concerning and very, very troublesome. Of course, our concern as well is not only with Iran's development of nuclear weapons, but of Iran's conduct in the area. 2 years ago, Iran attacked Saudi oil installations in the eastern province, and that, of course, is unacceptable. They keep supplying the Houthis with missiles and drones that the Houthis then launch at Saudi targets, civilian targets, I might add.
Do you think the new Iranian leader, Raisi, is as well responsible for the assassination attempt against the Iraqi prime minister, or do you think that that was a rogue group?
I have no idea. I am not in the official loop to get information on that. But also on Iran, the original deal, if you remember, under Mr. Obama, was accepted by Saudi Arabia with assurances from Mr. Obama that it would prevent Iran from having nuclear weapons. And the king visited Mr. Obama after the signing of the deal, and they issued a joint statement in which Mr. Obama and the king agreed to undertake actions to prevent Iranian disturbing activities in the area. And that's why the king accepted the president's assurance on the deal. However, Iran did not stop interfering in the area, as we see with the Houthis and in Syria and in Lebanon and in Iraq, and as you mentioned, the attempts on the prime minister's life in Iraq. So Iran has to be held to account on these things, and they haven't been held to account so far.
So what should be done?
Well, I think there should be more sanctions on Iran. That's my personal view, rather than engaging with them and promising them lifting of sanctions. They haven't shown any positive step toward not only curtailing their nuclear deal, curtailing nuclear enrichment, but also their disturbing activities in the area. And I might add, they use blackmail to get what they want. Developing a nuclear bomb is a method to blackmail the rest of us into accepting what Iran wants to do.
We don't have much time, but would the Saudis develop a bomb if they think Iran is moving in that direction?
Well, I've publicly said in the past that we should do whatever is necessary, including acquiring the knowledge to develop a bomb in order to defend ourselves against a potential nuclear-armed Iran. I'm not in government to say what the government is going to do, but this is my personal opinion.
Prince Turki, thank you so much. Afghanistan File is the book, and it is really an extraordinary history.
Thank you, Andrea. You've been very gracious.
We thank you very much. And coming up, the Inside Scoop, why Democrats need to overcome their